Israel and the church. I want to be careful and sensitive to this one because sometimes people are very passionate about this subject matter. I have found that out through comments on YouTube and messages on Facebook. So, I'm just going to tell you where I land on some of this stuff. Well, most of the time in the book of Revelation, when it alludes to Israel, it's talking about spiritual Israel, not physical Israel. Okay? Jesus actually says, the true seed of Abraham. Well, let me just stop real quick. Just context, just in case. God starts a nation with a really old dude and a really barren woman. And it's so cool because he says, I'm going to create a people. I'm going to literally create a nation out of a miraculous sign, out of two people who all they have is faith and no possibility of doing this themselves. And through that nation will come the Messiah. And through that nation, you will be blessed. It will be my covenant people. Boom, Israel comes out of Abraham and his wife. But then Jesus tells us what's really going on. He says, the true seed of Abraham are not those who are circumcised. In other words, not those who just grew up here and have followed all the commands. But he basically goes into saying, the true seed of Abraham are those who believe in me. In other words, what God did with Abraham and Sarah, creating this nation, God has created a people out of an impossible circumstance, the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ. Just a quick side note. This is my own speculative thought. But a buddy a few months ago asked me, why do you think God has Israel as his favorite, his people, and he's like willing to destroy and kill other nations to protect them? It kind of sounds like a genocidal maniac in some ways. Well, it's way more complex than that, for one. That is a really not fair or weighted way of looking at it, number one. Number two is this. I want you to think of Israel like the bomb squad of the world. Okay? Israel was supposed to live holy and different. They were a kingdom of priests, and they were a kingdom of, they were a nation that was supposed to be holy and designated unto the Lord. Now, God had a unique, and I wouldn't say more, but a unique love for Israel, but he also wanted to put a unique love through Israel. So in other words, he had a unique love for them, but as it says in Romans chapter 1, they were entrusted with, or Romans chapter 2, they were entrusted with the oracles of God as to be a light to the other nations. Israel's failure was not as much anything other than them being the bomb squad, them living holy and different to evangelize the world. The idea was that the other surrounding pagan nations would look at Israel and that they would be blessed, that they would live different and holy unto God, to the God of Israel, and that they would forsake their gods and go, your God is the true God. And it didn't work out that way. So the remnant comes, the Messiah, Jesus comes, and he is Israel's representative. He does what Israel was supposed to do, live holy, perfect, and he is the priest and the sacrifice in the temple system, therefore getting rid of the temple system. Where was I going with that? So anyways, let's read Exodus chapter 19. Here we go. Here's where I was going. Let me finish this. The reason I was saying that was because if Israel's the bomb squad, you got to keep the bomb squad alive because it's the people of God that you're working through. And so, in other words, Israel is his evangelism tool to the world at that time. So yeah, it's important. It's important. Exodus chapter 19, verse 4. You yourselves have seen what I did to the Egyptians and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now, therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession among all peoples, for all the earth is mine. And you shall be to me a kingdom of priests, a holy nation. This is Israel's identity. These are the words that you shall speak to the people of Israel. Now, every single thing that is attributed to the people of Israel is attributed to the church in the book of Revelation. Now, this could sound what is called replacement theology. This is not replacement theology. Replacement theology says that the church replaces Israel. No, that's not the point. Well, does Israel still have a special place in it in this way? And does that? No, that's not the point. The point is, read Romans 11. The point is this. There's a tree. And Israel is part of that tree. But some of them don't believe. Actually, a lot of them don't believe in the Messiah. So God has cut off and pruned some branches of the tree because the branch is dead. And he grafts in the Gentiles, the non-Jewish people. And so it's not a question of, well, is Israel here or is the church here? The truth is, Israel and the church, or the Gentiles, are all grafted into Jesus. We're all one in Christ. So, this makes much more sense when we look, for example, last thing on this is, that's why 1 Peter says, we are a chosen race, a holy priesthood. We are. That the true seed of Abraham, this is Romans, is those who would believe in Christ. And God, of course, still loves Israel, but there is a shift.